All right, so the day has come and the day is here. My most anticipated movie of the year and probably all time has officially dropped in theaters, and I got a chance to see it the day that it came out. If you've been following this channel, you will know how highly and extensively I've been talking about this movie and how much I've been looking forward to it. Batman is my favorite fictional character of all time, and I know many of you can relate to that. So when I went into this movie, my expectations were through the roof, especially since the wait for this film has felt like forever, considering how long the production went on with all the shutdowns and delays that it had. And I gotta say, even though my expectations were incredibly high, this film actually exceeded the high bar that was set. This was quite literally a passion project for Matt Reeves, and from the sounds of it, everyone who was involved, since the entire cast seems to have been massive fans of the franchise and also huge fans of the characters that they were portraying. That passion was executed phenomenally, giving us an extremely fresh take on the character of Batman and the world he inhabits, while at the same time staying incredibly comic accurate. So let's get into it and let me tell you why the Batman is quite literally everything you could ever want out of a Batman movie. So instead of giving us another origin story, which we have seen time and time again, or giving us a story where he is well into his crime-fighting career like the Zack Snyder films, Matt Reeves decided to give us a tale where Batman is in his second year, still trying to find his footing and purpose in the world. He is still quite inexperienced and rough around the edges while being a little overconfident at times, which definitely gets him into trouble. It really humanizes the character that way, as he definitely takes a lot of punches, makes mistakes, and also gets hurt from his actions. He isn't this invincible and untouchable figure of the night, which is quite refreshing, where at times you really question how he will pull through with what he is doing. There's points in the movie where his bat suit has visible gashes, wear and tear, and even bullet holes in his armor. And that suit, man, that suit is absolutely beautiful. Honestly, my favorite bat suit we have ever gotten. This is a suit that Bruce has crafted himself, and it really shows how DIY it all is. It has its own personal charm to it. Taking direct influence from the Arkham games, mainly Arkham Knight, it looks gorgeous and menacing as all hell, especially when the rain bounces off of it, while his cowl is almost a modern interpretation of the Adam West cowl with a stitching and open jaw, exposing Robert Pattinson's jawline of steel. This suit is packed with useful gadgets, such as his grappling gun, UV lights for investigating crime scenes, flares, and much more. I like how it is truly believable that his gadgets can actually fit into his suit and utility belt, as opposed to every other suit where you really question if his gadgets can actually fit in there. Even his bat emblem can detach and be used to help him throughout his journeys. With his bat suit being my favorite, same goes for his Batmobile. Is this thing badass? I love how this is a muscle car, a modified 1970s Dodge Charger, and is really believable as to this is what he would actually drive, as opposed to the eccentric Batmobiles that we've gotten in the 90s, or even the Tumbler from the Nolan movies, which I was never the biggest fan of. Its introduction is so incredible and jaw-dropping when it springs into action that it's almost like its own character, as you can feel its presence when you see its lights ignite out of the darkness of the alleyways, with the flames emerging from the backside of it, with the engine revving as high as possible. Almost like the movie Christine, which Matt Reeves was really going for. Oh man, in that car chase scene involving the penguin from the trailer, when it jumps through the flames, which was actually done practically, no CG. Beautiful. Such a cinematic experience. This Batman is so calm and calculated while being a few words a lot of the time, so everything that he does say truly means something, as no dialogue is wasted. You can tell when Bruce puts on the cowl to become Batman that he truly becomes and truly believes in who he is so strongly,
I'm vengeance,
that he literally loses himself. This movie is narrated by Batman, adding a strong noir element to it, and early on he states that he loses himself so much in the night that come morning, he almost has to force himself to remember what happened, truly emphasizing that he really has something else take over him. A diary is even kept as he writes down every morning everything that happened during the night, which is actually what the narration of the movie is pulled from. He loves being the character of Batman so much that he's at a point in his crime-fighting career that there's not even a Bruce Wayne available. The character of Bruce Wayne is literally in like 5% of the movie, and you can tell he hasn't figured that part of himself out yet. He is a loner who has a hard time interacting with anyone around him. This is a Bruce Wayne like we've never seen before. In every iteration, there is that playboy and charming side of him. It's the mask that he puts on to divert attention away from his true identity, which is Batman. Here, he is so far from that. There are points where he does the exact same thing as Bruce Wayne that he does as Batman, and it's so interesting to see how blurred the lines are for him. For instance, not giving away too many spoilers, but he goes to the Iceberg Lounge twice. Once as Batman, once as Bruce. And when the Bouncer twins open the doors, he gives the exact same line of, "You know who I am?" showing that he hasn't quite figured himself out yet, or quite frankly, doesn't really care. There's parts of the movie where instead of doing the typical Bruce Wayne stuff we've been used to seeing, he slips into his drifter persona to blend into and infiltrate the streets of Gotham to obtain information and intel in a way that he can't do as Batman, nor as everyday Bruce Wayne. He is a recluse, completely disconnected from the public, where even Jim Gordon doesn't know who he is.
Hey, Mr. Wayne.
Matt Reeves said he was inspired by Kurt Cobain as to how reclusive Kurt got, with him hiding from the fame and publicity, in which he applied to Bruce. This also answers why he chose that Nirvana song for the movie. It almost seems like he borrows elements from Michael Keaton's portrayal and how socially awkward he is and just a little out of touch, because even in Batman '89, it was present that Bruce was still trying to balance his duality. Except he actually had a concept of his duality. Alfred, played by Andy Serkis, has a pretty small role within the movie, but I feel it's pretty significant for Bruce's overall arc and is a little overlooked. He spends some time trying to get Bruce to come out to the light and just be Bruce by attending company meetings, since he refuses to, since he has better things to do. Even though it seems like he can be critical on him for overindulging in the Batman, Alfred keeps it 100 as he goes above and beyond to help him out however he can. He is totally selfless towards Bruce, and even though he isn't his father, he damn well tries to fill that void. It's so fascinating to see how broken and damaged Bruce is, to the point where you can literally feel the pain he is going through without him even saying a word, all through his mannerisms. Shouts out Robert Pattinson for this amazing acting. This really makes me look forward to where the character goes throughout the trilogy, because he does go through a pretty significant arc come the end of the movie, which makes him really rethink and reevaluate everything he's been doing. If anyone nags the fact that they don't like this Bruce Wayne because he is just Batman, just wait, there'll be a huge transformation to come. Speaking of transformation to come, at the beginning of this video, I was saying how this isn't exactly a Batman origin story, but this really is an origin story to most of the supporting characters. We are introduced to Selina Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, who is perfect. She captures the essence of who Selina is in her early stages, where she's not Catwoman quite yet, ripped literally from Batman Year One. The dynamic she has with Bruce is so magnetic, electrifying, and captivating, where they have this push and pull relationship where she will choose to work with him, but will stray away at every given second for her own personal interests and gain. Her character arc leaves us with a lot of hope and promise on where she'll end up in the future, as an HBO Max series will be happening for her to further flesh her out and bring her closer into the Catwoman persona. We are introduced to the Penguin, who just goes by Oz, played by Colin Farrell, who is Carmine Falcone's right-hand man, not quite the mob boss that we're familiar to. And I just want to say, wow, Colin Farrell is completely unrecognizable in the role, and he really loses himself in Oz entirely. He offers a lot of well-executed humor, which is never at any point over the top, as it truly complements who the character is pretty well. The movie really sets him up to where he will be heading, especially with an HBO Max series also in development to further flesh him out. It's wild because Oz wasn't in the movie for that long, but his presence sticks, and all of his scenes are incredibly memorable. Carmine Falcone, played by John Turturro, was also excellent and truly caught me off guard. His role in the movie was a lot bigger than I expected. There are so many twists and turns with this character that you won't see coming that really made me appreciate the character as a whole that much more. And that's coming from someone who's never been the biggest fan of the non-supervillain mobsters in the universe, such as the Maronis and the rest of the Falcones. Let's talk about Paul Dano's Riddler. Oh my god. This is by far the most unique version of the character we have ever gotten, and it's easily my favorite and most believable interpretation, especially in context to the extremely grounded and believable world that Matt Reeves has laid out for us. Given his backstory and motives provided, it all makes sense. This man is terrifying. The first shot we got of him will send chills through your entire body as you quickly find out he is a serial killer who is taking out the Gotham elites while also exposing their corrupt sides, in which nobody was aware of through live streaming with the public, and also through the riddles that he leaves at the crime scenes. Wearing a green leather army combat mask with his head wrapped in saran wrap, I've seen a lot of people complain about his design, but if you actually take a second to think about it, somebody who is obsessed with riddles, keeping everything shrouded in mystery, would also want to leave his own identity a riddle and mystery in itself, since this way he leaves absolutely no DNA whatsoever at the crime scenes. This is Gotham City's version of the Zodiac Killer to a T, as he leaves cryptic messages like the Zodiac Killer once did, written in ciphers, inside of the riddles to be solved at his crime scenes while leaving his victims secured within jigsaw-like traps. This all adds such a heavy horror element, and I'm all for it. The way he goes about his murders is so reminiscent of the movie Seven as well. The Riddler, who goes by Edward Nashton, can go from calm to completely off-the-wall crazy at the flip of a dime. And given how boyish and innocent he looks unmasked, it makes the Riddler so much more terrifying, because when you're looking at him, he would be the last person you'd suspect him to be. He takes all of his inspiration from Batman, as he is striking fear into people while behind a mask, and when that mask goes on, his true self comes out. It plays into Batman mythos quite a bit, since it's an arguable fact that Batman does more bad than good by spawning and inspiring all of these eccentric supercriminals who so conveniently started plaguing the streets of Gotham after the arrival of the Dark Knight. The Riddler truly believes what he is doing by unmasking the truth of lies and corruption in Gotham so much to be the right thing that it makes him that much more effective in the villain territory. The best and most memorable villains are the ones who truly believe in their cause and what they are doing to be the right thing. Every villain, or soon-to-be villain, is so pumped full of charisma, and with that being so, it never once takes away from Batman being the main character in his movie, with all of the villains knowing their place. It seems like most Batman movies in the past, the villains tend to be the front and center due to their charismatic and outgoing energy, with Batman almost being a side character, but that is definitely not the case here, which is so refreshing. The Batman has such a rich, engaging plot and has such a strong focus to where everything in the movie is extremely effective to the narrative with nothing being wasted. To me, this is not a superhero movie. This is a very dark, gritty, and visceral detective crime thriller with a splash of horror, taking heavy influence of film noir and movies from the 70s such as Taxi Driver and Chinatown that just happens to have Batman in it. The fact that they did that makes me so happy since Batman is well known to be the world's greatest detective, but no movie has ever brought that to the forefront. I just want to talk about Commissioner Gordon for a sec, who's still Lieutenant Gordon when we meet him. His relationship with Batman is executed so well like we've never seen before, as it's almost like a buddy cop movie as Batman goes with Gordon to crime scenes to help figure things out, with Gordon quite literally being the only cop who believes and trusts in what Batman is doing to be the right thing. On the flip side, Batman believes Gordon is the only good and not corrupt cop on the force. They have such a well-executed dynamic to them that I can't wait to see where they take the character of Gordon in the Gotham PD HBO Max series and also in future installments. That is, whenever they decide to continue forward with the Gotham PD show, because as of recently, Matt Reeves has stated that this show has evolved to something else, bringing its focus entirely to Arkham Asylum, diving deeper into the horror element. The character of Gotham City, by the way, because the city is a character in itself, is easily the best Gotham we have ever gotten in live action. This city is so disconnected from the world, it's insane. It almost feels like its own self-contained reality, riddled in filth, grit, grime, and gothic architecture where a sunny day just isn't possible. It's like 1970s New York meets Gothic Scotland. It has such an atmosphere to it that is incomparable, and as the movie takes you through a little tour of the city, you can quite literally feel how this Gotham breeds the criminals that it inhabits to be a reflection of the city itself. You can completely understand how a man would take upon himself to dress up as a bat to bring the highest level of vengeance every single night for 2 years. You can't have a Batman movie without a captivating Gotham. It looks straight ripped out of Arkham Knight, and just the Arkham games in general. And speaking of the Arkham games, let's talk about the fight choreography. This is some of the best we have ever received as well. The Tim Burton movies didn't utilize his martial arts skills, quite literally, at all. The Schumacher movies touched slightly on it. The Christopher Nolan movies had better fight choreography, but was reduced to a lot of quick cuts, while the Zack Snyder films fully utilized his fighting to the best of his potential. Here, it was so fascinating watching Batman leap towards his enemies, beat the living daylights out of crowds of thugs with well-choreographed moves, that it looks straight pulled out of the Arkham games with the things that he pulls and the flow that it has. With all the intense action sequences, it's worth noting that Batman doesn't kill once, and his no-killing rule is heavily enforced in this film, even so far as if someone in his presence is about to take a life, he will do everything in his power to prevent that. He has had his no-killing rule in previous installments, but it has been so heavily ignored that everyone who has played Batman has killed multiple people, besides George Clooney. It really was refreshing to see this, especially considering how this is arguably the most brutal and bone-crunching version of the Dark Knight we have gotten. He might not kill you, but you will be killed by your hospital bills. The action scenes and overall every scene in general is enhanced so much by the beautiful score and brilliant cinematography. The score by Michael Giacchino is so grand epic, hypnotic, and borrows elements from the animated series while being completely original. For instance, the Catwoman theme. This is the music that plays when the mysterious woman walks into the smoke-filled detective's office at 2 a.m. when she's about to inform him on a new lead he's been so desperately looking for while playing the part of the femme fatale, unsure if you can trust her or not. I seriously love the 1930s somber jazz club noir vibes. I can listen to this for hours and have had it on repeat on my Spotify, cause it's just that good. And the cinematography by Greg Fraser is out of this world. Every shot in this movie can be used as a screenshot for the background of your computer, phone, or even turned into a painting. It's visual eye candy, and I cannot help myself but to overindulge on how absolutely breathtaking every shot is framed. There is not one shot in this movie that is a throwaway shot or is even close to being subpar. The color palette is so breathtaking as there's so many deep and dark colors which contrast wonderfully with the darkness of the city with an indulgence in so much orange that it really feels like it pays homage to the era of Art Deco and hits it straight out of the park. That style floods this movie as Art Deco, to me, is a definitive art style to truly represent the Dark Knight inside his timeless world. Who thought a city covered in grit and filth would look so goddamn cozy and inviting? It really makes me want to smoke a cigar, enjoy some whiskey, and shoot some pool with Carmine Falcone. I don't know, man. Everything about the Batman has gone above and beyond. From the perfectly casted cast who all share an equally vast respect for the franchise as a whole, the rich plot that takes twists and turns which keeps you on the edge of your seat, eager to figure out where it's headed, the cinematography, the score, tied in with everything I have talked about, it's all there, and it's all executed in a way that only an auteur like Matt Reeves can execute. The man is so passionate about Batman and has such a strong vision for the world that he wants to build that I am so genuinely excited to see a proper Batverse pan itself out. The fact that this is a standalone universe completely separate from the DCEU is my favorite thing about this, because I am so beyond sick and tired of shared universes where every movie has to have a cameo of a character from another movie that the fatigue is just heavy at this point where I seriously need a nap. The world of Gotham has so much extensively rich content stored within it. Batman has easily the best rogues gallery out of anybody, and it would be such a shame to waste that on a shared universe. Seeing this city being fully fleshed out is a dream come true for me, since this is my favorite place to lose myself in. Currently, this movie is scoring huge in the critic department, and that undeniably gives assurance for us getting a trilogy, multiple spin-off series on HBO Max, maybe even some spin-off movies. I really hope that this Batverse sticks with us for a very long time, because within a city where the sun never shines, the future has never looked so bright.